Hi, this is Tim Delaney from the Business Buying for Financial Independence podcast. I hired Adam to help me launch my podcast. This was an idea, a concept that I've had for years, but hiring Adam was the push that I needed to get it over the finish line and officially launched. What would have taken me months, if not years longer, took just weeks to get going. Adam provided all of the resources, tools, and support that I needed to get the podcast off the ground and rolling. I've already seen great success in the number of downloads I've had in the first few episodes because of his tips and tricks, and I look forward to growing as I release more episodes.
What's up, pod pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you are listening to Podcasting Business School. It's a show where I teach podcasters simple strategies to help you grow your audience and turn those audience members into new clients. I'm really excited about this topic today. Podcast rankings and top percentage analytics explained. We're going to do a deep dive. I've never done an episode like this. I've covered this in little parts and pieces of episodes. There's so much confusion about this. So much confusion, and I'm going to set you straight. You're going to get over a decade of experience and knowledge poured into your brain region on this one. And I'm really excited. I think when I start working with people, they come to me saying, hey, I'm a top whatever percent podcast. What does that even mean? Or I'll get a question like, how do I get my show ranked? So we're definitely going to dive into those things today. Speaking of working with me, if you guys could use a little help with your podcast launch strategy, your monetization strategy, your podcast growth strategy, hit the link in the show notes, get on my podcast profit potential discovery call calendar. We can talk about working together. All right. So, as mentioned, I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure you've heard it. This is the statement I see pretty much every single day on social media. I've got a top 5% podcast, or I've got a top 1% podcast. And that's just out there. And now, here's the thing. I want you all celebrating every single win, small win, big win, all the wins. The problem with a statement like, I've got a top 5% podcast, is that you are not providing any context. As in, top 5% according to what? Downloads, episode longevity, I don't know, audience. There's a lot of different analytics and metrics that you can be a top 5% in. So we're going to declutter that so you know exactly what you're talking about. Because I know a lot of you have a podcast manager that just feeds that to you and says, hey, your show's top 5%, or you see something somewhere, or maybe you take something out of context, even that I've said, and you go, oh, Adam says I'm a top 10% podcaster, so let's announce this to the world. So it's my fault. So today we're going to really clarify exactly what you are saying there, and I'm going to give you the ability to add context. All right? I'm excited for this one. Okay, so we're going to cover 4 different types of rankings and top percentage analytics today. I'm going to talk about the ranking charts, the top 100 charts on Apple and Spotify. I'm going to talk about probably the thing that confuses the most podcasters and has the most kind of misleading information, which is your listen notes score. We're going to talk about average download number, like where you stand as far as average download numbers. I get that question a lot too. Like, what is good? I get somebody says, oh, I've got 182 downloads per episode. What does that mean? Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. We're going to give you some perspective there. And then we're going to talk about podcasting longevity and total episodes and where you rank compared to other podcasters in that metric as well. So we're going to start with the big, exciting one that we're all kind of loosely aware of, and that's the Apple and Spotify top 100 charts. Here's the deal about Apple and Spotify. They're always changing this thing up. Like it's located in different locations on their app and on their website. They change the categories. They change, is it a top 200? Is it a top 100? Some categories you get an actual ranking. Other categories, it's just like a grouping of here are 100 great shows with no specific order. So they don't do a great job of that, which is irritating for us. Here's what I know. All right, I've got 4 things that I 100% know about Apple and Spotify charts. First thing, getting ranked helps discoverability. if your show pops up on an Apple Top 100 chart in your category or a Spotify top whatever chart in your category, it seems that does whatever magic to the algorithm and the search bar, but your show has more discoverability potential. It's going to help. All right. That's why when I consult on a podcast launch, we always try to get them ranked. Any way we can, we get them ranked because it helps so much with overall discoverability. So we know that. Another thing we know about these charts is that it is much easier to get ranked in a subcategory. Example, let's say you've got a health podcast. You can be listed in the health category. That's the big parent category. But let's say you talk about mostly nutrition. It's about like intermittent fasting or something like that. Then it's much easier to get ranked in the subcategory of health-nutrition. And when you're in your podcast host, it should give you the opportunity to choose that as a category to be listed in. So that's the next question is, okay, how do we get ranked in a specific category and not another one? It comes down to what you list your show as in your podcast host. So I host inside of Libsyn. And when I go into Libsyn, it will ask me like, what category is your show as you're, loading up a new show. And I have mine listed in business, parent category, subcategory entrepreneurship. Because I know it's much easier for Podcasting Business School to get ranked in the subcategory of entrepreneurship. It's a smaller pond. Business is the big pond. Entrepreneurship is the smaller pond. Health is the big pond. Nutrition or fitness is the smaller pond. So in your podcast host, the first category you're listed in is the one you will get ranked in. So go into your podcast host, even if you have to pause this episode right now, make sure you come back to it because I got a lot more tips like this, but look at what the first listed category is. Some hosts only allow you to be listed in one. Other ones will allow you to be listed in multiple, but make sure that the one you're really trying to get ranked in is the first one listed. All right. Really important to make sure that's a subcategory, not an overall big category. Now, the nice thing about having that subcategory is you can get ranked in the subcategory and the big category. I had a client that did this, has done this with 2 shows in a row. I have a lot of podcast coaches that I coach, and I show them how to do this with their clients, a lot of podcast managers and people like that. Shout out to Ryan. He's crushing it. He's got he helps dentists, and he 2 in a row got ranked in subcategories and the big categories, like top 100 rankings. I think 2 of them were in top 50. So he's doing great. So this really works. All right. But make sure that you have that subcategory that you want to get ranked in listed first in your podcast host. Really important. All right. Another thing we know about these charts is that a bolus or a big increase in downloads or subscribers in a short period of time helps you get ranked. Now, will it keep you on the charts? No. Those shows that are always like top 10, top 20, top 50, they're like always ranked. They're doing big numbers. It'll be a little bit different for each niche, but you can get a smaller show ranked if you have a whole bunch of people hit that subscribe button and downloading episodes in a short period of time. Example, when I launched one of my shows back in the day, I owned a fitness studio. And on launch day, I stood in the front of my fitness studio, and everybody that walked through the door, I grabbed their phone and I subscribed them to my show, and I downloaded the 4 launch episodes. And that show debuted at number 2 in my sub-niche category. All right. So did I have millions of downloads? No, but I probably grabbed 100 phones that day and subscribed them all to my show within a 10-hour period. One of my friends had a show that was ranked in the 150-ish range on Apple Podcasts. He spoke at an event and he said, let's do an experiment. Raise your hand if you do not currently subscribe to my show. There's about 30 people there. And he asked those 30 people to go ahead and subscribe to his show. And let's see by the end of his presentation if he jumped up in the rankings. And he jumped up into the top 100 by the end of his hour presentation. So it took 30 people to go from 150 to top 100. And it's just that bolus of activity. All right. So that's a way you can kind of gamify your podcast launches. When I'm helping people with a launch, when I'm helping some of my podcast coaches with their clients' launches, we really focus on circling the wagons. Do you have 20 people that will hit subscribe on your podcast on launch day? Even if they aren't ideal listeners, maybe it's family members, friends, coworkers, whatever. If it helps you get ranked, that will help your ideal people find you. All right. Last thing I want to mention on Apple and Spotify charts is that ratings and reviews do not seem to help at all with rankings. They're good in other ways, with social proof and things like that. But that's why during a launch protocol, I tell my clients to not even ask for a rating and review. That's a wasted call to action, in my opinion, on launch week. If most people only do one thing. So I don't want them writing a rating and review. I want them hitting subscribe. I want them hitting download on the episodes and sharing it out if possible. So rating and reviews are kind of down the road. We'll ask for those later, but they will not, as of the time of this recording, as far as I can tell, all the information I have, all the experience I have, they do not help you with getting ranked. All right. So those are a few notes with Apple and Spotify charts. Now, what does this mean for us? If your show pops up on one of the charts, I want you to celebrate that. Like, I would recommend screenshotting it when I'm doing a launch, and if I've launched a show and I've had it kind of climb up the charts. Like, I launched a limited series podcast called Podcast Monetization Tips. You should definitely check it out. Did that a couple of years ago, and it shot up in the top 50. I think it was like 54, 55. It was right behind Russell Brunson's podcast. I was trying to pass him. I couldn't get past him. Dang it, Russell. But I was taking screenshots as I was climbing the charts, and it's great for social proof. It's great for sharing. And you can forever say that my show, like Podcasting Business School, pops in and out of the rankings and the entrepreneurship sub-niche rankings. I can always say, like, hey, this is an Apple top 200 entrepreneurship ranked podcast. It's actually been in the top 100. So I can always say, hey, Apple top 100 entrepreneurship podcast. Now, is it currently? It may or may not be, but it has been, and I've got the screenshots to prove it. So those things can be shared on social media, your website, et cetera, and it's good social proof. So what does that mean in top whatever percent? It means nothing, but it does, like, you can honestly say, I have a top whatever ranked Apple or Spotify podcast, and that's cool. And we should be sharing that out. All right, let's go to the next area that we can kind of analyze some analytics, rankings, et cetera, and that is listen notes. Now, I would say with my audience, probably about 50% of you know what Listen Notes is. If not, go to listennotes.com. All right. And this is a valuable resource, but I'm going to challenge you to look at it in a different way, because most people are misguided when it comes to Listen Notes. So when you go to listennotes.com, enter in the name of your podcast, and you're going to see two things: a listen score and your global ranking. I think this is where a lot of podcast managers are going to their clients and going, you've got a top 1% show. And I would say that's largely untrue, or a top 10% or top whatever percent show. That is misleading. That, in my opinion, is not true. So the listen score. First, I went on their website, and I'm going to read verbatim what they say the listen score is. So what is listen score? Listen score is a metric that shows the estimated popularity of this podcast compared to other RSS-based public podcasts in the world on a scale from 0 to 100. The higher, the more popular. This is calculated from first and third party data, updated monthly. All right. So a listen score, it also notes that podcasts that publish episodes regularly over long periods tend to score higher. I like this as a metric to look at and try to improve. All right. That's where, to me, Listen Notes is valid, where each category, each niche is going to be different as to what a good listen score is. But if you have a listen score of 30 and it goes, in the next quarter, it goes to 40, you're like, okay, improvement. That's good. Now, what I have a problem with is this global ranking. It's misleading, because the global ranking doesn't mean, a lot of people assume like Podcasting Business School, my listen score right now is 47 and my global rank is 1%. What that global rank does not mean is I have a top 1% podcast. What it does mean is that my listen score is in the top 1%. All right. So that's where we add that context. So if you want to share something out about this, I wouldn't go on and say, I've got, according to Listen Notes, I've got a top 1% podcast. I feel like that's misleading. But I can go, according to Listen Notes, my listen score of Podcasting Business School is in the top 1%. That is factual. All right. Now, here's the kind of misleading thing about the global rank. All right. I'm going to read verbatim again. What is global rank? This podcast is talking about my show. This podcast is one of the top 1% most popular shows out of 3,761,510 podcasts globally, ranked by Listen Score. Now, here's the problem. This is factoring in shows that are inactive, because we know that there are only about 600-ish thousand podcasts that can say yes to they've released more than 10 episodes in anything in the last 90 days. So really there's only about 600,000 active podcasts. I did the quick math, 600,000 divided by 3 million, whatever, the big number that I just mentioned. That quick math tells me that we should, if you've released more than 10 episodes and you've released anything in the last 90 days, you should automatically be in the top 16% on this Listen Score, on the global rank. All right. Just by having an active podcast. So that's where the global rank is really misleading. So I would not go out saying I've got a top 1% podcast only based off of listennotes.com. What I would say is, hey, my listen score is 47. If I can get it above 50, that's great. All right. And, and you can kind of dive in on listennotes.com and look at the listen score and what it's comprised of and all that. It seems like the more episodes, the more regular episodes, the more they're consumed. There's some different things that go in there. I'll let you guys, if you want to deep dive on that, it's cool. But the key takeaway is, what is your listen score now? Track it, check it every 90 days. Does it go up? Does it go down? Try to improve it. Improvement is good. All right. That is listennotes.com. All right. Next metric, average download numbers. I feel like this is where you can really say, I've got a top whatever percent podcast, but we should still add context. According to what? So, I've got a top 50% podcast according to downloads per episode. It never hurts to add context to that statement. All right. So this is where, when I'm working with people, especially, they like to know, like, okay, Adam, I've heard you talk about different metrics before, about top 50%, top 20%, according to downloads. Where's my show stand? Help me figure this out. So I'm going to give you 5 numbers. Now, I get these from Rob Walsh, who's been on my show a couple of times, and he was with Libsyn forever. Now he's with Captivate FM. And with his old podcast, he would kind of update these once a month. And this is just kind of a loose representation of the current metrics. All right, we'll just put it that way. But these are close. These are always really close on the average downloads per episode. So the first one that we always shoot for is 125 downloads per episode. Now, what does that mean? That means that if you release an episode today and you measure it 30 days from today, it's at 125 downloads. If your downloads are always hitting that episode after episode at that 30-day mark, 125 downloads per episode is top 50%, 50, top 50%. You're doing better than half of all podcasters. All right. I love that metric because it should give you all a lot of hope. Because a lot of you are like, oh, I'm doing 48 or 82 or 99 downloads per episode. And you're sitting there beating yourself up about it. And now you go, well, damn, 125, that's not that far away. And I'll be a top 50%. I'll be doing better than 50% of active podcasts out there. All right. Now, the next metric we shoot for that I feel like is achievable for any podcast in any niche is 1,000 per episode. I feel like anybody can do that. If you really work at it, this is possible. And it's a great place to be, especially when it comes to listener to client conversion. 1,000 downloads per episode, measured at 30 days, is top 20%. All right, you're doing better than 80% of podcasters. Now, past this, I'm going to give you 3 bigger numbers. Not everybody can hit these numbers. If you're in a tiny sub-niche of a niche, hitting 1,000 per episode is really good. And maybe you go above that, but really, I don't feel like it's hitting 20,000 downloads an episode is possible for every single podcast. It's just not. All right? And there's a lot of things that factor into that. Your niche, your experience, do you have a team? Do you have an ad budget? All right. So the two I mainly focus on are the top 50% at 125 downloads per episode and top 20% at 1,000 downloads per episode. I feel like anybody can achieve that. All right. The next three, if you do 5,000 downloads per episode, top 5% show according to downloads. 12,000 downloads per episode, top 2%. Still not giant though. Still not millions per episode. 21,000 downloads per episode, top 1%. Now I can tell you that some of you are doing that. I 100% know that. I got a client that's got millions of downloads and she's crushing this. All right. But when a lot of you look at, I've got a top 1% listen score. This is why I don't like the listen score, because people say, I've got a top 1% podcast. People will assume you're talking about downloads. But if you're talking about listen score, you might be getting 40 downloads an episode, but an average download top 1% is 21,000 downloads per episode. That's why that listen score can be misleading. Hopefully you're starting to get that now. So according to downloads, I've got a top whatever percent podcast. All right. So that's, those are our 5 numbers that you can use as kind of goalpost benchmarks as you go down your own podcasting growth journey. Now, last thing, I'm going to give you a couple metrics that are in line with total episodes, or what I call podcasting longevity. And this is another statement that if you're going to share this on social media, you got to add the context. All right. So the first stat is getting to episode 10. I know, setting the bar low here, y'all, but only 17% of podcasters make it to episode 10. It's sad. All right. Out of all the podcasts that have been launched, only 17% get to episode 10. There was 83% in the graveyard, and that sucks. But it's something to be celebrated. Once you get past episode 10, bam. Now, does that mean you've got a top 17% podcast? I would say no. But in terms of longevity, hey, I'm in the top 17% according to podcasting longevity. I made it to episode 10. So I would not encourage you to go out there and screaming to the hills, I've got a top 17% podcast. No. But be excited that, hey, I've made it further here's the statement that I want to see on social media. By hitting episode 10, I've made it further than 83% of all podcasters. That's correct. All right. Next one, making it to episode 100, 5%. So by making it to episode 100 of my podcast, I'm now, in terms of podcasting longevity, I'm doing better than 95% of all podcasts that have ever been launched. Bam. Factual. That's correct. All right. So those are just a couple metrics. You can look up ones past that, but really, once we get to, if you get past episode 100, now we're cooking. I talk about this all the time on Threads. Your first 100 episodes are when you learn how to be a podcaster and what your voice is going to be. And it's a pretty curvy, windy road even past that. But as somebody that's released and created well over 1,000 episodes now on multiple shows and multiple niche topics, I can tell a huge difference from every show that I've done. I've taken multiple shows past 100, 3 shows, in fact, past 100. I'm very proud of that. Most people don't get past one show past 100. I've done it 3 times with different shows. And I can tell you that there's a big difference episode 101 plus, right? So that's just something that you need to strive to get past. And that's when that light at the end of the tunnel of podcasting success starts to shine a little bit brighter. All right. So those are a few areas that I hope that I just add some clarity with this one. Again, I want you celebrating, but I understand that we all get hyped up. We hear from somebody, I got a top 5% podcast. We shout it out, but I'm that guy on social media that I'll kind of pull you over quietly in the corner and go, hey, we got to add some context to this, so that because other people will just call them out. BS, you don't. You've got 12 people that follow your account. You don't have a top 5% podcast. You will get called out by the mean folks. I'm the nice, kind, gentle big brother, Adam. I'll kind of pull you over and say, hey, let's add some context to this. Where'd you get this? Oh, it's listen notes. So you should say that you got a top 1% listen notes score, not a top 1% podcast. or whatever. But these are things that we can celebrate. You should be celebrating if your show gets ranked in Apple Spotify charts. That's a huge accomplishment. You should be celebrating if you improve your listen score. Celebrate it. All right. You should be celebrating for every average download per episode metric and benchmark that you passed. And you should for damn sure be celebrating podcasting longevity. All right. So these are 4 different ways you can celebrate and add context and correctly share the good news out there on social media and to your own podcast audience. I hope this has been helpful. Again, if you could use a little bit of Big Brother Adam time and you need a little help with growing your show, getting a clear plan in place for your monetization strategy, for attracting clients with your show, for expanding your audience, hit the show notes and get that link for my podcast, Profit Potential Discovery Call. We'll chat for about 20 minutes, talk about how I can help you out when it comes to working together and see if it's a good fit. Pod Pals, I hope this added some clarity. And with that, I'm going to send you out into the world wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. I'll see you on the next episode. If you need a little bit of help with your podcast launch, growth, or monetization strategy, head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and get signed up for a free podcast profit potential discovery call. During this free 20-minute discovery call session, I'm going to analyze your podcasting brand and tell you where I think you're missing on an opportunity for profits. Next, I'm going to tell you exactly what I suggest that you do as your next step. If I've got an offer that would help you accelerate the process, we can discuss working together as well. So head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and click on the Discovery Call button to schedule your free